Welcome back to the PewterCast. I am Brent Allen, your host. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, who is always here, who is always by my side, who recently has always been distracted with a fun little game called PUBG that he's kind of gotten me into a little bit. Rendax, how you doing, my friend?
Never better. It is not my fault. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're starting to make addiction groups and stuff for that kind of stuff there, Ren.
I saw a tweet today that sort of inferred that the reason players are having bad, I guess maybe in hockey or basketball, playoff basketball, I guess you can't really have so much football, that it's because the athletes are spending too much time playing Fortnite.
Really?
Like, that's the reason. They're staying up all night playing Fortnite, and they're not ready for the game.
They're all tired. Wow.
Yeah. But I can relate to that, honestly, because when Halo 2 came out and you could actually go online and, do the group battles, and my brothers were here in St. Pete and I was down in Miami, I used to have to set my alarm clock to go to bed because I had to work like at 9. Like my alarm would go off and it's like, okay, get off Halo 2 and go to bed because now you've only got like 4 hours of sleep.
You had to be reminded of it.
Yeah, or I would have played until I had to go to work, and I would have been trash.
My new addiction, HQ. Are you playing this game yet?
Cheryl plays it. My girl plays it.
Yeah.
Not on the reggae, but we play it enough. I think how many questions is it?
Well, usually it's 12. Sometimes it gets changed up, but usually it's 12. The last 3 times I've played, I've gotten to 10 and 11 questions.
Oh.
Have yet to make it all the way to the end, but I've been ever so close. Ever so close to win 62 cents.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, 9,000 people get to divide up $2,500.
Right.
Yeah, I think we usually get knocked out around 8, 7, 9, something like that. For
the longest time, I never made it past like 5.
Really?
That's about, like the first 3 questions are usually super easy. Number 4's a little kind of tricky. 5 gets a little tricky, but then they get easy again for 6, 7, and 8, and then they get,
It's always easy if you know it.
Yeah, it's always easy if you know it. However, we are not here to talk about online video gaming or quiz shows. We are here to talk really about the Buccaneers, and specifically we're here to talk about what our fellow fans are having to say back to us. This is we still don't know what we're calling this, Ren. We posited this on the episode that came out last week. Is this a mailbag episode? It's not really a mailbag episode. It's kind of what it is, but I just don't want to call it that because I think that name's kind of lame. No, lots of people out there that do this for a professional living call it mailbag, but I just don't like that name. But this is what this is. Go ahead.
Is it because everyone calls it mailbag?
That's probably it, to be honest with you. But you know what this is, Ren? Way back last season, we started doing this segment where we do fan interactions, where you guys would do iTunes reviews or you'd send us emails, you'd ask us questions, whatever, and we get a chance to bounce off of that and have a whole segment. And we said, wouldn't it be great if this section eventually grew into being its own episode? Well, Ren, the last several times we've done this has grown into being its own episode. So here we are today. That's what we're going to be doing. And
be careful what you wish for, kids.
It could come true. And it did today. Now, with that, we're going to start off where we always start off this deal is we're going to read a couple of iTunes reviews. And today, Ren, we have 3 brand new iTunes reviews.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot. You guys out there are killing it. Thank you so much. That brings our grand total of reviews up to 70 currently.
That is a lot.
That's quite a bit. We are solidly in the 5-star range, although there's a handful of reviews that are not 5-star. The 5 stars so far outweigh them that we are given a 5-star review. So thank you to everybody who has been there. And we read reviews whether they are good or bad. And the first one comes to us from Stevel Empire. And this was a 5-star review, says, solid podcast. Says, great work, gentlemen. You guys found yourself squarely in my podcast rotation. Keep it up.
Short, succinct, very good. I like it. Thank you, Steven Empire?
Stevel Empire, yeah.
Gotcha. Steve and Evil Empire. I like it. That's pretty catchy.
Yeah. So yeah, definitely thank you so much, and we appreciate the 5 stars. Glad to be squarely in the rotation. That it's really one of those, and I've pointed
for shizzle. I did
for shizzle.
My apologies.
It's really one of those that I have been. I think it's just because I've been so astounded by it, the sheer number of Tampa Bay Buccaneer podcasts that are out there, and unless you're like Chef Aaron, there is no way that you can probably humanly listen to every single Buccaneers podcast for all of the hours, every episode that they release. So
there's a few people out there.
I think there's a few people out there that do it, but most people kind of pick and choose, and that's right. There's they prefer this one or this one or this one. So the fact that we are in that list, for you, Stevel Empire, and for those of you listening to this, thank you. We definitely appreciate the support, and we do this for you guys, for our fellow fans. And in these cases, we do this with you guys for being on there. All right, Ren, next iTunes review. I don't really know how to count this one. I was telling you this a little bit about this before we started the show. This is not a new review. This is a review that was left shortly after an instant cast somewhere in the middle of the season. But for some reason, it's coming up as it's a new review. However, it looks like it's been changed.
So they went back and edited it.
It's like they went back and edited it, which I didn't know that you could do in an iTunes review.
Edited it. I'm also a big fan of people that I'm trying to get to people use the word text and not texted.
Texted. I text.
Yeah. I just use text for everything.
I try to get people to not pronounce the T in often and at the end of the word track. It's like a tract of land, not a tract of land.
It is.
It's true. All right, but anyway.
Often. I say both.
You say both?
It's often and often.
Yeah. This one comes to us from a guy named A Sometimes Violent Peace. And this was
P-A-C-E or I-E-C-E?
P-E-A-C-E.
Okay,
Sometimes Violent Peace. He says, look to other podcasts. This was a 1-star review.
Oh.
Says, it was a bit shocking to see great reviews for this podcast. Everybody's different.
I'm sorry. It's not going to start off good. Okay.
Yeah. He said, everybody is different, but in my opinions, other Bucks podcasts are better. I don't particularly like the calling in aspect of the show. Like I said, this came in after an instant cast. Okay. I think I know who this guy was, and I think that he kept trying to call in, even though I kept saying we only have one line, so sit tight. But anyway, he also says the host kept talking about the PG-13 aspect of the podcast. That was really odd to me. Talking so much about cursing was really odd to me because it doesn't matter. If it's your desire to host a buttoned-up and professional podcast, then do exactly that. If you don't want to allow people to swear or curse, then don't allow it. No need to discuss at length the fact that you are not using adult language. Besides that pet peeve, the analysis isn't great.
That doesn't make any sense. If it's a live call-in show, you have to let people know that, in his words, a buttoned-up collar professional podcast. Uh-huh. But anyway,
I don't know that I would not describe us as a buttoned-up professional podcast. It's simply that there are other Bucks podcasts that embrace people using whatever language they want and encouraging that, and just we have a lot of listeners of both.
It's very popular. Yeah. And it's like, hey, if you're going to come and talk with us, this is live, and we don't. Yeah,
it's just the show that we're trying to build, and it's fine. I like the lots of listeners to the PewterCast also listen to Bucks Uncensored, and lots of ones that write into us also send in takes to Justin, and all that's fine. It just the difference is I generally like for people to be able to feel safe to listen to this in the car, and at the same time, I'm not going to edit a ton of people. If you come in here and swear it up, I might do something. But generally speaking,
Oh, we're talking about it too much. He's not going to like this one.
That's actually kind of why I keep talking about it. But anyway, he
did say it was just a pet peeve.
He said it was a pet peeve, and he said besides that pet peeve, the analysis isn't great, and other podcasts do higher quality analysis. Now, I don't understand why this is popping up as a new one. I don't know if he went back and edited it or what, but but even then, I mean, he still must be coming back and listening to us, Ren. If we, still made him mad enough to keep listening.
Is he keeping listening?
Because if it's enough to come back and redo his review, I guess. Edited it. Yeah, whatever. So, to a sometimes violent piece, thank you for your review. I think
we've taken everything under advisement, and nothing will change. But
perfectly said.
We're not the podcast for you, buddy.
And that's okay. That
it's fine.
You're not the listener for us, I guess. And
no, don't say that.
You're fine. I should edit that part out.
No, don't.
All right.
Your feelings were hurt.
That one came in on the exact same day as this next one, Ren, which I will remind you of the last line that the analysis wasn't great and other podcasts do higher quality analysis. Our next iTunes review comes in is from Rewind 25776.
How many stars?
5 stars.
Rewind knows what he's talking about.
The title of this one, Ren, is Tirade. Ooh, now, this is going to call out somebody by name that you did not call out by name, Ren. But this is what it says. It says,
oh, no.
Says,
okay, let's hear it.
I really appreciated the comment concerning Lee DeKemper and the Bucs coaching staff.
What? What are you talking about?
Ira Kaufman used to be my favorite podcast. However, you guys are my favorite now. I love your analytical approach to your discussions. Thanks, and keep up the good work.
I may or may not have called someone a name, which I do regret. But, like you said, different strokes for different folks. I wonder if the guy who said that we didn't have good analysis, compared to, the guys that are in the building all the time, we don't,
Sure.
They get all the inside scoops and stuff. What do you like to say? We talk about the news, or
we don't report the news. We talk about the news. We comment on the news. Yeah,
we do. We do comment on the news.
Yeah.
But, well, thank you. That was a very nice review.
Makes us feel nice and warm and fuzzy.
Yeah, it makes me feel much better.
So it's and listen, a lot. Again, I go back to a lot of our listeners also listen to Ira Kaufman, and I listened to Ira Kaufman, and I thought it was really funny on their episode. I think they got released today, Ren, as we record this. Steve Visbitz, the other host of Joe Bucks fan fame and is on there with Ira, had mentioned that when people write in and complain about the Ira Kaufman podcast, they love Ira, they complain about Steve and Lee. And I was thinking of this iTunes review when I heard him say that as I was listening to it earlier today. So
there's that.
Made me laugh. All right, one more iTunes review. This one comes from Chris. This was a 5-star review. This says, this is a really fun podcast.
Oh, thanks.
It said, this is truly a fan-sided podcast where Brent and Ren will take your phone calls live, read your emails, and interact with you on Twitter. They also have a chat room. This is my number one podcast for all Buccaneers podcasts because of the fan interaction. Thus, this entire episode. Both Brent and Ren are very funny. The podcast does not have any sponsored advertisements, which means you get a full hour or more of strictly talking Buccaneers football. This is truly my favorite and number one podcast of all Buccaneers podcasts. Keep up the good work and go Bucks.
Well, it's not from a lack of trying on the sponsors, but yeah, I get that. I remember when one of the many Buccaneer podcasts, the very first episode, I listened to it and it kind of turned me off and I quit listening to it, but since I've gone back to it, it was like probably a 45-minute podcast, and I swear to you, Brent, it was like 20 minutes of ads.
Mm-hmm. I know exactly which one you're talking about. I remember talking about it when it came out. Yep.
I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Like, This is crazy.
Yep.
But they're getting paid and we're not. So, so I definitely see both sides of it. But don't hold your breath. Hopefully we will get a sponsor. But yeah, that was a nice review. I like it.
Nice
he said we were both funny.
I know.
That's weird. Yeah,
it's almost like we should do more podcasts together.
Right. STTE podcast. Star Trek: The Essentials on Twitter.
Crossing our fandoms here. All right. Well, guys, I want to say thank you to everybody who left us a review, regardless of what the stars were, though we always prefer the 5-star kind. You guys can do that. We ask for the reviews to come over to iTunes, even if you don't listen to us on iTunes, although we know that it's something ridiculous, Ren. 87% of our listeners listen to us through iTunes or Apple Podcast, whatever they're calling themselves these days. But if you're one of the 13% that listen on another platform, just go over to iTunes, leave us a review, and then go back to listening to us on the regular platform. This just helps get our name out there as people are searching for Buccaneer Podcast. It helps this community grow. And certainly, Ren, as we get into the season and we have things like the Instant Cast and things like that, it just brings more people into those chat rooms, and that whole experience is better with more people. So now that said, Ren, I've got a fun little announcement to make. Actually, two, which is I find very funny coming off of this last review.
We got sponsored.
We have our very first official sponsor of the show. Now, as I say this, I actually was going to put this on the last episode, but I wanted to save it for this moment right here. I want to let you guys know something. Podcasting is free to listen to. It always will be, but it is not free to make. And there's just expense that goes with it. And I'm, very happy to do it. It's just a part of the gig when you become a podcaster and you understand that. That said, I am not out here selling ads. We're not out here hawking, beating on doors saying, hey, give us money.
When I said not for lack of trying, that was absolutely false.
Right. Yeah. It's I
should have said not for lack of wanting one.
Right. Yeah. We have not, we're not out there trying to sell the show. And we're not talking about other people's stuff to try to get you to buy it because they gave us money. I want to make you guys a promise. Anything that we talk about on this show is going to be something that either Ren or I, or maybe the both of us, in this case it's just me, have personally used, and we've kind of vetted it, and we liked it enough that we said, hey, we want to share this with our friends, and we want to get this out there. So this one is for men. Listen up, men. Women, I'm not trying to leave you out of here. It's just 95% of our listener base is male, and women, truthfully, you probably could use this too. And if there's a special man in your life, get it as a gift for him. Depending on your personal preferences, it may actually be a gift for you. But I want to tell you guys.
What is going on?
I know. I want to tell you guys about a thing out there called Manscaped. And it is exactly what it sounds like. Manscaped is number one in men's below-the-belt grooming and hygiene.
So you've tried this, you said?
I have. I ordered one of these. I have one of these, and I have used it. It's fantastic. It really is, and it's okay. Putting
like
this
baby down there.
Putting this in. No, it's not even that. It's not that kind of a thing. But putting this in male lingo, you can complete any job as long as you have the right tool. You know what I'm saying? And trust me, Manscaped is the right tool for this job. It just makes everything easier. There's no nicks, no snags. They've the way it fits in your hand and lines up with everything. It's great. It's good to go. They even have a body wash line. They have a men's nail kit. Things that just are really meant for men. Now I'll tell you guys, you can try it risk free. I think you're going to like it, and I think you're going to want to keep it. I know that I did, and both me and my wife are very, very happy with it. So
I was going to ask you that. Wait, the risk free part. This.
Yes.
Let me try my my podcasting ad selling. Already prepared statement to move the. See how good I am at this?
Already prepared. He's thinking of it right now.
Risk free? What do you mean, Brent?
Yeah, let's never do that again. But it is risk-free. If you don't like it, you can send it back or something. You have to read their details. It's all on their website, manscaped.com. Check out what they have if you've never heard of it. Decide if you want to try it out. And here's the deal. For our listeners, enter the code PewterCast at checkout. You're going to get a whopping 25% off your order. This isn't 10%, 15%. It's 20. It's a fourth. A fourth of your price is gone, and that's after whatever sales and stuff that they have going on. So that's just for our listeners. PewterCast at checkout, manscaped.com. Go check them out. I think you guys are going to love their product, mostly really, for all the men out there. So you do that. Now, that said, Ren, we actually have our another way to kind of help bring in some funds just to offset the cost of the podcast a little bit here. We have our very first Patreon subscriber, which is really cool. If you guys don't know what Patreon is,
I didn't even know we had one of those.
I know. It's one of those things I kind of just sort of set up in the background and just let it be out there. I haven't pushed it a whole lot. But I want to say a big thanks to Alan, who is our very first Patreon subscriber. He found us out there. Patreon is it's a way that you can make a small recurring monthly donation to the show that just kind of helps keep the lights on around here. And the more you donate, there's different levels of rewards that you can get. And you can get some exclusive content that Ren and I are creating that will only be available to the patrons. There's PewterCast gear and swag, especially now that we have that new fancy smancy logo that we rolled out last year, Ren.
Oh, yeah.
Which is super fun. There's a certain level that will actually get you invited to a monthly private hangout with Ren and I. You hang out with us and just talk. We can talk shop, talk about anything you want to. You could be a guest on a future episode.
What?
As a patron. And really the cool one.
Are you trying to replace me?
No, I'm not at all. Because we have an empire we got going on here.
That's right. Forgot.
But the really cool one, and it's limited to 2, Ren. So no more than that. But there is a level that if you subscribe to that, you stay with it for 6 months. I will invite you to come be my guest at a home game of the Buccaneers this coming season. So
you're gonna take somebody to a home game?
I'll take somebody to a home game. They can come hang out, and we'll sit
in the club section.
In the club section, in my seats.
Are you gonna do the What the Buck tailgate?
We might. I don't know. We'll talk about it. It's so anyway, you guys go over there. It's patreon.com/ThePewterCast. You guys can check out what the different levels are. Like I said, all of that, it's not necessarily money that just goes back into my pocket. It just helps offset the cost of the podcast and keeping it running. And, there's a couple goals, things about, getting a new website up and running and having some other things, upgrading some gear and different things like that for the show. Making things a little bit better. So I want to let you guys know about those 2 things. That is a lot of ad talk. Let's get back to some messages from our fellow fans, Ren. We got a message from our YouTube channel, our YouTube subscriber. Which, by the way, Ren, I know you don't get these numbers.
Our one YouTube subscriber.
No. Our YouTube subscribers have tripled in the last month. Really? I don't know what's happening in YouTube that people are looking for us and finding us on YouTube, but so we now have 3. No, that's not true. There's it's an interesting it's been this real dormant thing, and now it's just in the last month it's kind of had this little explosion type deal going on. But anyway, we
should start embracing YouTube a little more.
We really should, because YouTube's bigger than Google. But this comes from Buck DeWorld UK J1. I'm going to assume that might be a person from the UK. Might not be. I don't know. But he says, good podcast.
University of Kentucky.
Might be. That'd be cool too. I'm down. He says, good podcast. First time listening and subscribed. Can't wait to see who we get. This was back before the draft. Go Bucks and fire them cannons. So thank you. Shout out Buck DeWorld. You guys can find us at youtube.com/ThePewterCast. Lots of ways that you can find the show, Ren. All right. Let's get to the magic here, Ren. We've got a handful of emails. Got about 3 of them. And I feel like this is a brand new emailer into the show, Ren.
Really?
Yeah. This one comes from Reginald. Reginald says,
Great analysis.
Here we go back to. Thank you for setting that weenie crybaby Lee or whatever the hell his name is straight.
Why does everybody think that's who I was talking about?
I don't know. It says your podcast is awesome. Ira's podcast could be awesome if they put that fat little toad on waivers.
Oh, that's a terrible name. Why'd you call somebody like that?
Whether you think you can or whether you think you can't, you're right. Reggie.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I got a little bit of run on that.
Yeah.
Okay. I did call Lee DeKemper a fat little toad, and that was totally uncalled for. But his analysis really sometimes he just says stuff that it's if you just think about it for a little bit, you'd understand that it's just not true. Mm-hmm. And there's what you're saying is absolutely wrong, and you can't prove it. So yeah. I kind of went off the rails, and I apologize for that. But I will say he is one of the reasons I do listen to it, because I know I'm going to get something at least once a week how bad his takes are.
You're saying you listen to it for the humor of it?
I listen to it so I can be outraged. I'm like one of those guys.
You're one of those guys. Yeah.
One of those like, I can't believe it. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
But
oddly, I think Lee might be one of those guys too, Ren.
Oh yeah. He's definitely one of those guys. It's just need to think it through every once in a while.
Kind of getting to know him a little bit over the last year.
No, and I don't want to make it sound like everything he says is absolutely wrong. It's not. It's just when he tends to jump to conclusions without really thinking things through, like stuff that he says, like the Buccaneers coaching staff can't develop a young corner.
Mm-hmm. And Ren, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think what really was getting you about that was the fact that he kept harping on it and coming back to it again and again and again and again through multiple podcasts. That was the part that was getting.
Yeah, you say it once, you can be like, okay, I don't agree with it, no problem.
Yeah.
But when you start standing up on a table and pounding your feet and figuratively pointing in my face, keep on trying to push this narrative that is absolutely false. You have no proof, and I talked about it anyway. Mm-hmm. I didn't really want to go on this tangent, but anyway, it's one of the reasons I listen to Ira, and he wasn't on this week. The Kemper wasn't on Ira's podcast this week. I was like, that's too bad. But anyway, apparently I'm not alone. There's other people out there that think that he should think more and talk a little less.
There you go. And like I said, they admitted on the show today that if people have a problem with the show, it's because of those two, not because of Ira, which I found really funny. Anyway.
My issues with Ira are totally separate. I'm just kidding.
All right. Our next email, thank you, Reggie, by the way. Thank you. Our next email comes in from Chris from Alaska.
Yeah.
A buddy who's way up there. I get to talk with Chris quite a bit on message boards and Twitter direct things and things like that.
Yeah, he's probably one of those guys that listens to all the Buccaneers podcasts as well.
He might be. He really might. Chris, let us know. I'd love to know, he's
everywhere.
Yeah, how many count. I will put this out there to anybody. Go through your podcast feed, count the number of Buccaneer podcasts you have that you subscribe to, and let me know. I'm just curious. Purely professional and fan curiosity. I'm just curious. And that's for everybody out there. Tweet us at ThePewterCast or message us on Facebook at ThePewterCast. But anyway, Chris says, Dear Brent and Ren, great job on your pre-draft and post-draft shows. I really enjoyed listening to all the different podcasters that cover the Bucs. Once again, you find a way to go outside the box. If you guys are new to the show and didn't get to listen, what he's talking about is for the pre-draft show, Ren and I actually kind of sat down and we did a reverse instant cast where we called some of our fellow friends in the Bucs podcasting world to talk about the draft before it was happening. And then after the draft, we teamed up with actually some of the same guys and actually a couple different guys and did a mega show. It was all of our shows combined together to do a post-draft analysis. So really cool. It's back in our podcast feed. A couple of those other guys put it out on theirs as well. So if you haven't listened to it, go back and do that. They were good shows. Chris goes on here. He says, Vea was the right pick at 12. The defensive line was the worst in the league last year. There is no way that Jason Light would put himself into that position again. Vea might not be a starting every down next to Gerald McCoy type of lineman, but this allows for McCoy to be able to rest and have no drop-off. Also, watch the game that Washington played against UCLA. UCLA was not effective double-teaming Villa and eventually had to have 3 guys on him. Whoa, 3 guys. Putting 6 hands on the man, huh?
I like that.
He said that is very telling. Look, one thing the Bucs have been lacking on the D-line is winning those one-on-ones, and now insert JPP, Curry, Spence, and more of those one-on-ones will be won. This fits the mold that Jason has been doing over the past 3 seasons, bringing in a veteran and then drafting a rookie in the same spot. Sign Grams, then draft VH3. Sign Ayers, then draft Noah Spence. Sign Allen, then draft Vea. The biggest complaint last year was the team could not get to the quarterback, and Jason has made it a point to make sure that does not happen again this year.
He's done his best, that's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of things there. One, I think that he said that McCoy can get a rest and won't be that much drop-off with Vea. Mm-hmm. Is that what he was? I'm not going to go that far on a limb.
Mm-hmm.
Also, yeah, he's probably not leaving all the time defensive tackle. I'd like to say as of right now.
Mm-hmm.
And also, that's just not what the Bucs do. That's why when – that's why there's 8 guys they're going to keep on the defensive line because they're going to rotate them all.
Okay, so let's talk about that because, this came up with particularly JPP when he came in. I've heard this is true about Vea as well. And, I think back to McCoy and how often he plays. And I don't have exact snap counts and stuff down for that. But, JPP is one of those guys. He played something like 92% of the team snaps on defense last year.
He played the most defensive snaps of any defensive lineman.
Love that mute button.
I love that mute button. I just sneeze, everybody. Any defensive lineman in the NFL.
Yeah.
And you're right. It was like 92, 93%.
Yeah. And I've heard the same thing was true about Vea. Like Vea in college played an ungodly percentage of the snaps.
Right.
And I believe Gerald McCoy also tends to play a high percentage of the snaps. He does the 3-down deal. So I know that you said that the Buccaneers rotate their guys. They don't leave their guys in for all 3 downs. Their thing is about kind of forcing them to rotate. But especially with a guy like JPP who's coming in with the gravitas that he has, if he could just, maybe turn around and be like, no, I'm not coming out. Or, I don't know how many weeks that might take him to just have them stop asking him to come out, like I wonder how much of this really could go back to the players honestly just kind of refusing to come out.
Well, that's not going to happen. If I was a defensive coordinator or the head coach and guys refuse to come out, I think I'd call a timeout and then go out there and drag the guy off the field by his face mask. That's what I would do. It'd probably go really south after that, but that's what I would do. Now, like Gerald McCoy, he plays all 3 downs. What he doesn't usually do is play a whole series, is what happens. Like, he'll be in their first, second, third down. If they get a first down, he'll be in their, first and second down or first down, and maybe he'll come out on second down. They rotate and third down. There's going to be 4 guys. This is what I think is going to happen. I think JPP and Gerald McCoy are the guys going to play the most.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we'll say they play like 88% of the snaps. Defensive snaps, and then everyone else is going to rotate in, and then there's going to be just situational players like Noah Spence.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be just such a situational. I think Will Golston is just going to be a situational player, but I think your 2 pillars are going to be McCoy and JPP, and then you got your Bo Allens and Vin Curry,
Unrein,
and Vita Vea. Those guys will probably all play the same amount of snaps. Hopefully, in a perfect world, you would like to see where it sort of gets settled into 4 guys, and then only like people become specialty guys, or just give them a breather.
Because I tell you, it occurs to me when you look at the 8 guys that we talked about in last week's episode that are kind of locks to make the team on the defensive line.
Right.
That's 2 complete defensive lines.
Yeah, it's 8 guys.
And not just 8 guys, but like that's 2 – would you go so far as to say that that's 2 complete starting caliber defensive lines?
Well, if you take last year's Buccaneers starting defensive line as a bar, as a measuring stick, well then yes, I would.
Okay, well that actually brings up a real good question that maybe Bucs fans need to think about for just a minute. Because I got to be honest, for me, I'm looking at these 8 guys and I'm thinking, man, these are like 4 of these guys would make a killer off a defensive line. The other 4 would make a completely separate killer defensive line. We've got this best defensive line in the league, and everybody's hyping up this defensive line. Are we just having such a reaction when we compare it to the defensive line we had last year? And really, this is just kind of a mediocre to pretty good defensive line, but we just feel like they're so much greater than they are because we were comparing. Is that something we might be doing as Bucs fans?
Yes, but we did it last year with the receivers as well. Like we got the greatest receiving core in the NFL,
and look how that turned out.
This is what I would say. I would say if you put out McCoy, Curry, JPP, and then sort of figure out, we don't really know what Vita Vea is, right? Mm-hmm. We do know what Bo Allen is. So if you put out like McCoy, Bo Allen, Curry, and JPP, I think that's a top 10 defensive line.
Right.
That leaves you Unrein, Golston, Vea,
and Spence.
Yeah. I think that's more of like a 25, 26 defensive line.
You think so?
You know,
okay.
If they, I mean,
right.
Yeah, I did.
But you take any of those 4 guys and you rotate them in with that first set of 4 guys you had.
The drop off isn't as near as much.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
But so are they both 2 starting defensive line? I mean, are people getting overexcited about the Bucs defensive line? Yes and no. You know, I'm excited about it, but of once again being burned so badly last year about the expectations that I had for the team, and and they just fell flat in so many areas, especially the defensive line. I'm not gonna go out there and say that they're this is the best defensive line or one of the best defensive line. Does it have the people, the components? Can it be? Yes. Will it be? We'll see. I hope so. I think the chances are greater than not. I'll say that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll say that.
All right. Back to the email. Chris goes on. He says, I am super excited about Rojo. That's Ronald Jones. Watching some of his college games, I've been really impressed with his vision, his power, and then turning on the Jets once he makes it to the second level. He's going to add another dimension to this offense that we haven't seen since 2015. Teams will have to respect our running game, which will open up things for the passing offense. I still wonder if Dirk will try that toss sweep into the red zone with Jones, or will he toss that play away completely? I watched this play where the run was supposed to go to the right, and he immediately sees the hole was closing, and he immediately sees that the hole was closing, so he cuts left and just accelerates off to the races. He may not be the best route runner, but make no mistake, he can catch the ball and make defenders miss.
Yeah. Well, you could find any running back, college, pro, high school, that has a cutback run. You can find one where it's like, oh, the hole wasn't there, cutback, bounce outside, big gain, or go for a touchdown. You can find that. What Ronald Jones is going to surprise people with is 2 things. One, he does not like to go down. He's one of those guys that fights for like every yard, every inch, all the time. We say about Peyton Barber, he gets what's there and he goes down. Ronald Jones is going to get what's there, and then, we say Peyton Barber gets what's there and falls forward. Ronald Jones is going to get what's there, fight through it, and sometimes get through it and make it and turn into a big play. Now, as far as the second thing is his hands. They just didn't throw him the ball at USC, and the Bucs think that he can catch the ball in the backfield. Now, if he can do that, and he can pass protect, let's hope he can, at least to pass protect to Cutter's liking, where he doesn't have to come off the field on obvious patching situations because he won't get Jameis killed. Then we'll have a really good back for 4 years minimum. And then we'll see, the wear and tear on his body and how much money he wants and all that type of thing. Running back, it's you feel bad as a person saying it, but it's kind of like buying a cheap car, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's like buying a Saturn. You drive it into the ground and then you throw it away.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're not getting it for resale. You're not going to drive it for 2 years and then I'll sell it. No, you get an NFL running back, you run them into the ground, and then you go get another one.
I mean, it's a la what the Steelers are doing with Le'Veon Bell, right? I mean, they keep what they do. They franchise tagged him 1 year, and they've got him back like on another 1 year deal, and it's essentially
they don't want to,
huh?
Yeah, they don't want to pay him a big contract because they know, and history has seen it, that eventually this guy, like, they just fall off a cliff. 1 year they're great, and the next year they've forgotten how to play the game, and it's happened at running back after running back after running back after running back, and it's like I said, you feel bad and it's sort of mean, but that's just the way it is. That's the way the position is.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I don't know. When was the last time you had a really long? You had a running back who had a great long-term career. Peterson, AP.
Yeah, but
I mean, he even had a hard fall.
Yeah, exactly. He did. He went to New Orleans and Minnesota let him go, and then ended up in Arizona. Mm-hmm. And the only game where he looked decent was against us. Congratulations. Thanks a lot for that.
Right.
But I guess the last one, I guess, like Emmitt Smith, I keep kind of popping to mind. Jerome Bettis played a long time at a high level.
Right, but those are guys like from yesteryear. I mean, anybody in the modern era of football right now?
I'm trying to think. Well, and there's a couple of reasons for it. One, and this is something I've talked about how, or I've thought about, a lot of these records in the record books, like, as far as like career records, they're not going to be broken because these players are making so much money now. And then you sort of hit 30 years old and quality of life starts to come into effect. It's not like you can make enough money in an 8-year span to set yourself up for life and probably set your kids up as well. So it's going to take a real special player that's going to want to hang around and take that beating till they're like 34, 35, 36. And then not only that, you have to have the body to do it. If you're the way Ronald Jones runs, he's not going to be a 34, 35-year-old back. He tries to run through people too much.
Right. So what we're saying is, with Ronald Jones, let's like him, let's love him, just don't get too attached.
Well, I mean, he'll be here for 4 years at least.
There you go.
And they might re-up him, for like a 2-year deal, something like that. I don't know. He's only 20.
Yeah. So he's young.
So he's got a 4-year deal. He'll be 24, and maybe you sign him for another 4-year deal, and then he could be around for 8 years.
That's what we just did with Charles Sims, though. Like, he just finished his 4-year deal. We brought him back. This is his 5th year coming back, right?
Right, but
something like that. And it's just a 1-year deal. I get it. It's not guaranteed, I don't think.
It's just above league minimum too.
Yeah, so it's puts him on the chopping block. Maybe he's not so much a lock as I said in the last episode. Anyway, moving on with Chris's email. He's going through the draft here. He says, I was really excited to see the Bucs draft Alex Cappa, one of my favorite offensive linemen coming out of the draft.
Yeah, he talked a lot about Cappa. He was all over Cappa.
Yeah,
he loved Cappa.
He says the writing is on the wall for Sweezy and Evan Smith. Cappa will compete for the right guard spot, which allows Beninock to develop at the right tackle instead of just being a jack of all trades. I got to tell you one thing that I'm loving, because I'm starting to hear this from other Buccaneers podcasts. I'm starting to hear this and see this on Twitter, is I think Bucs Nation, Ren, is starting to come to grips with the fact that Ali Marpet is going to be a left guard. We're not moving him back to the right guard position. He's going to be a left guard. Like, yes, he's going to be a left guard. That they've moved him over there. That's where he's going to stay, at least for this year.
Well, yeah, I think so for this year, and he'll probably stay there. But it all has, Jensen has to work out, but we think he will.
Right,
and then somebody has to fill that right guard spot, which people hope it's either Beninock or Kappa. And then like Chris said. then Beninock can sort of take over for Demir Dotson when he finally decides that he's had enough. So, yeah. The reason everyone's sort of coming to grips is because the draft's over and we didn't get Quentin Nelson.
Yeah.
That's it. Because Quentin Nelson is a left guard, played left guard his whole career. And Alley's, even though he's left tackle in college, he's played, 2 years at right guard. And it was like, well, why screw with both of them and give them new positions? Just move Alley back to right guard. But now that we don't have Nelson, that's why everyone's like, okay, Alley's going to be left guard. And it looks like that's what's going to happen. Mm-hmm.
I got to tell you, I'm interested to see Beninock this year. He's a guy that we drafted. This is his third year. He's been a developmental guy, quote unquote, for the last couple of years. And, I kind of feel like this is his year to show us what he is. And he was a 5th round pick, which is fairly deep. But, you can get some guys that stay for a long time in those later rounds if they work out.
Yeah, make a nice NFL career.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving on with Chris's email here. He says, I like that Jason went out and got 2 cornerbacks. I think Grimes and Davis should start on the outside, and VH3 should start in the slot. Drafting MJ Stewart allows VH3 to move to the outside in case Grimes gets injured. I believe cornerback was another position that Jason was shell-shocked at last year, and he definitely made a point to fix it, and I believe he's done so. It'll be interesting to see if Mike Smith lets Davis play press and allow Grimes to play off coverage where he excels. Both MJ and Davis are both physical QBs and will make the wide receiver work to catch the ball. I like that the safety that they drafted. I know Conti haters are still out there, but last year he was one of the more consistent safeties on the team. So I assume Conti starts at strong safety, and Whitehead will eventually have a starting role replacing Conti, which I think is what we talked about in our last episode, Ren.
Yeah, that's sort of, I guess, the plan, the blueprint for it. We've talked about how even though the Buccaneers like Chris Conte, they keep giving him these 1-year deals. Mm-hmm. So, obviously he's not the long-term, fix for the Bucs at the safety position. Mm-hmm. And it will be interesting if I think that's going to be one of the things I'll be looking for is Carlton Davis. He does excel at press man. He played it all the time at Auburn. Mm-hmm. He's the biggest cornerback we got. And I think we will, because you've heard Mike Smith say in the past that, we let them play where they're comfortable.
Right.
So it's going to be interesting. VH3, he's just sort of like, what are you going to do with him? Because I think everybody wants Carlton Davis, to be able to win the right outside job. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And we're not going to bench Grimes. So that puts, sort of a battle of Stewart and Hargraves at the starting nickel spot.
You know what? I was thinking about this earlier today. Greg Allman, I know you're listening to every episode of the PewterCast, and you're a research guy, so let's get on it. But I'd be real interested to know a breakdown of people who were drafted in the first round. What is there, and even within the first round, break it down to the 1 through 10 spot, maybe the 11 through 20, and then the 20 down spot. Who has the greatest chance of lasting in the NFL? Let's just say past their first contract, versus a second round, a third round, a fourth round, because, it seems to me like we're hearing more and more and more about these early draft picks who flame out or were overhyped and don't really do much, but it's this weird Quan Alexander type of 4th round pick that all of a sudden becomes a superstar, or a Tom Brady 6th round pick that becomes a superstar, or, is Caleb Beninock a 5th round pick? Is he potentially a just good, solid player who's going to have a nice long career in the NFL? I'd be interested to know. I bet that metric exists out there somewhere.
I'm sure it does too. I still think it's first rounders, mm-hmm. because when second rounders, third rounders, 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th rounders flame out, no one talks about it.
Right.
I think this was last year was the first year that Jason Light had somebody past the 6th round stick with the team, I think. And before that, I think his first 3 drafts, he didn't have anyone past the 4th round stay on the team.
Really?
Like the 5th, 6th, 7th, whoever picks he had, like they never made the team. So when you hear, but you don't hear about those guys flaming out because they weren't a first round pick. When players flame out, what makes the story is somebody spent the first round pick on it.
Yeah.
But then, as we were saying, first round picks get more chances than second round picks and third round picks.
That's true.
A first round pick and a 4th round pick, they play the exact same. The first round pick's still going to get more chances than the guy in the 4th round to prove that he can do it because he's a first round pick.
Right. And Cutter said last year, it's not always fair, but you take advantage of the opportunities you get.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, he goes on and closes out his email here saying, I was certain the Bucs would take another running back in this draft. However, you could say that bringing Charles Sims back eliminated that possibility. Jack Sitchie, I'm sorry, hold on. I lost my spot.
Chris and his world famous
big
2-chapter emails.
Big paragraphs, yeah. Jack Sitchie, before his injury, was considered a day 2 pick. So if that works out, then Jason has struck gold. I really don't mind mid 6th or 7th round picks anyway, because most of the time they don't even make the roster. Tom Brady being the exception. This year, I truly feel like every one of these players has a chance to make this roster. Sitchie is more of a strength because of the depth we have. Is more of a stretch because of the depth we have at linebacker and could be signed to practice squad. And I think that's exactly what you and I had said. Or he gets stashed on IR.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, you had that injury a couple years ago. It's still flaring up, right?
Yeah. There's a couple things with Sitchie, and this might be high praise, but Lavonte David's not going to play forever. Okay. So you have Sitchie on a 4-year rookie deal.
What do you? I'm sorry. What do you think Lavonte has? Do we have 4 more years with him? Or is it less?
I don't know. I mean, by the way he played last year, I would say yeah. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, I don't have his contract numbers in front of me, so I don't know when his contract runs out. This is Lavonte's big payday right now.
Mm-hmm.
When he signs again with the Bucs or another team, it's going to be for good money compared to you and me,
right?
But it's not going to be, this. He's had his blockbuster deal,
Right.
So I don't know. You heard him talking at his press conference and talked about, all I did off season was try to get my shoulders right.
Right.
When you hear stuff like that, you're like, God, this could be his last year. But then you think about and you see the way he played last year with 2 bad shoulders. Well. It's sort of you come to the conclusion, at least I do, that I guess it's up to him because his play's not falling off, and it's kind of what I talked about. It's like quality of life. Like, do you really want to put yourself through that again? I think he'll finish out his contract with the Buccaneers. Like I said, I don't have it in front of me, so I don't know how long it is.
It's through 2020, so we have 3 more seasons with him, counting this year.
Okay. So maybe Sitchie's not his, long-term
This is the last year, by the way. This is the last year with Lavonte David that we have any dead cap money. So after this year, the Bucs can cut him, and there's no penalty.
No penalty.
But he's owed $21 million-ish over the next 2 seasons. So.
Right. So that's something to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, if Sitchie makes the team, he's probably going to do it in special teams. But it all depends how. One or two things going to happen. He's either going to make the team like the Anthony O'Clair did because they put him on the practice squad. They think somebody will take him, not necessarily that he earned the spot.
Mm-hmm.
Or they IR him like they did with Bell and Bond and Tui Kolovatu.
Mm-hmm.
Like Chris said, those are the 2 things because he's right. When the Bucs drafted him, all I saw was, hey, this guy was probably going to be a 3rd round pick, but he hasn't played football in 16 months.
Mm-hmm.
So, but right now there's just it's not a spot for him on the team. So
it's true. It's true. Just in case you're wondering, the big number, Lavonte signed a 5-year, $50.25 million contract.
So over 10 a year.
Yeah. So to your point, he is in his big payday right now.
Yeah. He won't get 10 mil a year, after 3 more years. He just won't.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you, Chris, for your email. Long, but lots of good conversation that bounces out of that. That we had there. All right. One more real short one from our friend David Mays. David writes in, says, hello from Oregon, soon to be Alaska. Maybe him and Chris can hook up because Alaska's fairly small from what I hear. I think Texas can fit inside Alaska like 3 times over.
No.
It's not that big, but it's big.
Did we have that conversation? Alaska actually is the biggest state.
It is. It is, but of the people they all live like in this one little sliver of it, mostly.
Yeah.
Anyway, David says, I hope you guys are doing well. Do you feel that the O-line was fully addressed via the draft and free agency thus far? He says, I don't feel so. Kappa will not be ready day one, and I'm not fully confident that this is yet a playoff team. Just wondering your thoughts. Thanks, David in Oregon, for now.
Well, Kappa may not be ready. That's why we have Benenoch, or possibly Sweezy. You can't fix everything. Obviously, they decided that defensive line was going to be what they were going to fix this free agency, and they fixed the hell out of it, or at least attempted to. They brought in Ryan Jensen, which upgrades 2 positions, center and guard, because now Ali can move over to guard. Demir Dotson had a career year last year. Is he going to stay healthy for the whole entire year? Probably not. That's why Benenoch's so important. And then if Dotson can't come back from this minor cleanup, which I fully expect he will,
right.
But if he can't, then you put Benenoch out at right tackle, and then it becomes sort of a competition between Evan Smith, Sweezy, and Kappa. So, and you can't forget about Lidke either. So, when you look at all the work they did at defensive line, then you see the offensive line, you can be like, oh, all right. Yeah, they didn't really address it, but they did, They brought in a center and a guard / tackle. And they've had guys waiting in the wings for a couple of years now. So, do I think they're a playoff team yet?
Week 6.
They got the roster.
Yeah. Hey, I talked a lot about the O-line before the draft.
Yeah,
saying that
you were really worried about them.
Yeah, and I mean, I still am. Has it changed a little bit with the drafting of Kappa? Yeah. But not to a point that it assuages all my concerns and hangups. And basically, it's just look. I feel like we've got a really solid left side of the line. The right side of the line is worrisome to me. I think Sweezy's out, so we're really banking on Evan Smith and DeMar Dotson, both who are very much older in their careers, both injury prone. Dotson coming off of a surgery or an injury, although like you, Ren, I think he's going to be ready to go. But DeMar Dotson had a fantastic year last year. I have not seen DeMar Dotson put together a string of fantastic years ever in his career.
Yeah.
Like standout years, not like he had last year. So, while I hope he can have another year, another repeat of that this coming year, I just don't know. Like it's not I just don't feel solid about that. And then of course that guard spot, but you have Caleb there, which that makes me feel a little bit better. Now that we have Kappa, that makes me feel a little bit better. I'm sorry. I just don't care for Evan Smith to be on this team. That's nothing personal against him. I just don't care for him on this team anymore.
I think you had him. I think you locked him.
I did because I think that's what the Bucs are going to do.
I see.
But I would be
You're ready for him to be replaced.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So, it really is that right side of the line, and we'll just have to wait and see. He says he doesn't think that Kappa is going to be ready day one. David said that, and he's probably right.
Yeah,
he's probably right, but he could be ready to go. I don't know. We'll wait and see.
Allie and Donovan were,
but they had to be. They were drafted to be. So
there was nobody else.
Right.
You're playing. I'm not ready. Too bad.
Right. And they had to learn. And we've watched them over the last 3 years continue to learn. I think Donovan has had more of a learning curve than Allie did.
Harder position.
And a much harder position, right. So, but I fully expect Donovan to have a fantastic year this year. One, being a contract year, but two, I think he's got Allie next to him, which is going to help everything. And he's got Jensen right next to him, which is also going to help everything. So, David's question, do you feel that the O-line was fully addressed in the draft and free agency so far? I wouldn't say fully, but I do think that they have definitely addressed it. And, it's possible that the right side could wind up really good. We just have to wait and see.
Well, I think it was fully addressed, and because they did the best they could with what they had, even though they did bring in Evan Smith, they did bring in somebody. They have Caleb. We've been told by many of the Bucks beat reporters that, not us personally, but we've heard, or everyone's heard, that Nelson was third on their board. Quentin Nelson was third on their board. So if he was there, they would have taken him.
Mm-hmm.
And
he was third on the board of guys not to move for.
Right.
Like they wouldn't have moved if he was still available.
Right. So, it went Chubb, Barkley, Nelson. Mm-hmm. So look at it this way: if they got Nelson, that flips Allie over back to the right side, and now you've got Donovan, Nelson, Jensen, Allie, Dotson / Caleb. Are you complaining? No, you think that's a great move. Well, so they go back and they get basically a light version of Nelson, not as polished, but the same sort of type of player, the same demeanor, the same nastiness, the same toughness. Like we said, Chris from Alaska been on this guy forever. Yes, he played at lesser competition, but they got the same player. You know what I'm saying? So if you would have been happy with Nelson and felt like it was fully addressed, then I would say it's fully addressed because you did get Kappa and, you did bring back Evan Smith. I mean, there's no holes in the line. Mm-hmm. Could there be there's a question mark at that guard position, and it's because of Sweezy's health, and it's because of Kappa's experience, and it's because of Evan Smith's play. It's not like they're not destitute. Somebody's going to play there, and they're going to do pretty well, I think.
I would agree. Well, Ren, that is going to wrap up really all of it's going to wrap up the show. We're done. That's a lot of iTunes reviews. We've got a new sponsor. We've got a new Patreon subscriber, new YouTube message, a couple emails. Good talk today, buddy.
Yeah, that was a I'm always shocked how long these are.
It is, but that's why it's become its own, we'll just make it its own episode and throw it out there. Yeah. So I want to say thank you to you guys who have downloaded and listened to the show. And this is where we throw it back to you guys. You can shoot us an email to ThePewterCast@gmail.com. We may not read them on every episode going forward, but we will find a place to batch them together and put them together. So you can do that. Shoot us an email with your thoughts on the state of the Bucks and what do you think about the draft and going forward. We certainly have rookie minicamp, which has started by the time you guys listen to this. Fully moving into the offseason. You find us out on Twitter. You can follow us there. That number is also growing every day, Ren, which has been fun to watch. Hit my favorite number, 1234. Not too long ago, and we've now since bypassed that. But that's Twitter @ThePewterCast, Facebook.com/ThePewterCast. That's where you can get a hold of us there. And we do respond to all forms of feedback. It's one of the more fun aspects of being a part of this Bucks fan community. Ren, I'll give you a chance for any final thoughts, and where can the people out there find you on the internet?
Final thoughts. I would again like to apologize to Lee DeKemper for calling him a fat toad. That was uncalled for. No matter how much I think you do not know what you're talking about, and that's a bit harsh as well. You just happen to be the person of all the Bucks media that I disagree with most. That was a cheap shot, and I apologize. That wasn't I don't know. It was a cheap shot. But having said that, I'm still keeping my eye on you, man. Still keep my eye on you. The best way to find me is on Twitter at Rendax, REN_DAXT. I'm always down to talk Buccaneers football.
And if you want to get in touch with me personally, I am at Brent Allen Live across all the social medias. And one more time, find the show at ThePewterCast across Twitter and Facebook, and ThePewterCast at gmail.com. Well, Ren, I'm not exactly sure how long it's going to be to our next episode. We haven't got that far and have it planned out, but it'll be coming soon. We're in the off season. I think we're kind of starting to ramp a little bit as we head towards OTAs and all that kind of stuff. So
things going to start happening, man. Things going to start happening.
Yeah, and we are now closer to the season starting than we are further away from the last season ending.
Thanks, Javier.
Thanks, Javier. Shout out. That is true. That came from Javier. Absolutely. So with that, until the next episode, we'll close this one out, as always, by saying, Go Bucks.